And we're back for another session of Tears of Trust. I'm your host, Maynard Bear. If you haven't figured that out by now, we're in the 21st, 22nd session of recording. Uh, Once again, everybody, I just want to put you all up to speed. Onward Buttercups, it's available on Amazon, right? I'm working on an audio book because I've had requests for that. This is all about building a team that can get shit done. Simple as that. If you're not happy with work, if you're not happy with the supervisors at work, you want to learn about being at work and how to build a team, what makes a team tick, a really good investment, and it can take a lot of frustration on your day. So once again, that's available on Amazon. What's happening right now with the podcast itself? TikTok, we're up to 2,580 people. That's followers. On YouTube, 1,434 followers, and Instagram at 3229. So we did actually hit 76,000 views on our YouTube channel, which is kind of cool. A lot of watch time there, so thank you very much. That's a pretty big start since November of last year. I'm really impressed. So thank you very much for all the support. And once again, click, like, comment. Amazingly enough, getting all these views, I probably only get about 1,000 comments. I do my best to answer as many comments as possible. So click, like, subscribe, and comment away, folks. So that brings us to today's episode. Today's episode is a pretty passionate episode. It's called Wounded to Worthy. And it's the shift that attracts the love you desire. Today's guest, Heidi Lynne. She's a pleasure strategist of all things. And Heidi, I'm going to get you to introduce yourself to the listeners here and just let everybody know what you're about.
Yes. Hi. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. So I'm a pleasure strategist, an intuitive energy healer, and I guide soul-driven women to finally release the weight of their past, to reclaim their feminine power and create a life that they love that's filled with joy, peace, and pleasure, and definitely help them attract their dream partner. So yes, without settling, fixing, or chasing.
Wow, that's a pretty, actually, when you listen to that, that's a pretty big mission statement. So I guess so what started this whole process? How did Heidi get to where she is today? Let's just start from square one.
It's so funny because, it's like we go through things in life and, as we're going through them, we may not see exactly what's happening, but then you come out on the other side and you're like, oh, I see now. Like, it's just like this epiphany. So for me, my journey, my healing, transformation, my soul mission, right? It took me from really growing up in like an alcoholic family where I felt basically just like the black sheep of the family, let's just say. And it got to a point in my teen years where it was just so much like chaos that I just wasn't happy. And so I ran away from home when I was 17. And then I ran into the arms of my boyfriend, who then became my abuser. We got married. We joined the army. We got married. We made this marriage work for like 11 years. And then I found, 11 years.
Wow.
And, I stuck it out. I was trying to be, the good wife and the devoted. And so I poured everything I could into that, ultimately self-sacrificing. And then I found myself in September of 2014. I couldn't take it anymore. My daughter had witnessed things. She was 1.5 years at the time. And she had witnessed things that no child should ever witness their mother going through. And there was this moment where my ex and I were going through this altercation, and she was sitting in the living room floor, and, I had my head that I got thrown to the wall. And as I was pulling myself out of the wall and I look over at her, she's sitting there with these beautiful beautiful brown eyes, just staring at me. And she's, we connected, and I was just like, oh my God, like, what am I doing now?
Daughter. Yeah.
Yeah. And my heart, like, my heart like sank, but also I felt like this ignition of like fire inside of me at that moment. And I was just like, holy shit, like I can't do this anymore. She doesn't need to grow up thinking that this is how she needs to be raised, how she deserves to be treated, how I should be treated, you know? And so it wasn't at that moment, but I made a plan kind of like in the moment when something happened a little bit down the road. It was a couple weeks down the road from that point. And I kind of just left everything. I grabbed her and a backpack of essentials, and I left everything behind for good. And then we went to a women's shelter, and it was spent because I had nothing and I was kind of scared for my safety. I didn't really have anywhere else to go either. I spent 4 months there just kind of trying to figure it out, trying to rebuild my life, whatever that looked like. I just knew that I didn't want to be back at that house, and I'd rather be on the streets than dealing with one more second of what I had been dealing with. So yeah, it's just, I kind of just figured it out, kind of rebuilt my life in the shelter, you know, or started that process. And then I got out and started a new chapter. And then it was about a year later, and I met my partner, my current partner, and everything was good, and it was roses, and it was just like magnetic. It was lit up, and we had so much chemistry, and it was something, it was like a love, like a feeling of being cherished and adored that I had never experienced before. And it was just so intoxicating. He made me feel so good. I felt respected. I felt loved. I felt cherished. But there was something underneath the surface that I wasn't quite getting. And there were moments I look back now and I'm like, oh, okay, I was just kind of blinded to all the red flags, right? And then it was a couple of years in, and then he had overdosed from an opiate addiction and almost died in my arms. So that was like, what I say is like the moment of like
This is the new love you found?
Yeah, that was back in about 2015 that we had gotten together, and then in July 4th of 2020 is when he had overdosed. And so yeah, and that I was like, whoa, like what happened? I felt like my life was literally just like falling apart, you know? But that was like the moment that was like the catalyst to this radical like healing journey that I just went on, because I realized in that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, I've been like pouring all my attention and effort and energy into other people. Like I need to pour into me. I need to give myself attention. And it was just like something that just clicked. And so I just started doing whatever I could, kind of like just pulling at, you know, weeds or grass or whatever, to try to just like get whatever I could to feel like I was happy inside and whole. And yeah, and that's kind of what took me on this journey. And so as I was healing and I was doing all these things, I realized that it was like 2 years later, my partner who had the overdose, I had only said I was going to stay with him if he showed me he was going to, heal, like go to therapy, do those things, right? And if he didn't, then I was out. But if he did, then I would stay with him, and because I loved him, right? And then it ended up being a year later, and I found that I just wasn't still happy. Like I felt like I was still the caretaker. I felt like I was like holding our family together financially, energetically, emotionally, all these things. And so I just told him one day, I was like, listen, like I'm ready to go. Like I love you, but I need more from my relationship. I need more from my partner. I see myself going, I'm elevating, and I need a partner that's going to elevate with me. And I don't feel like that's that right now. And that's just kind of what it is. And so he, at that moment, was just like, wait, just give me one more chance, please. Like, and my heart was like, okay, do it. And then my mind was saying, no, don't do it. You know, you've been down this road. This is time, Heidi, you know? So I gave him one more chance. And then it was a year after that I had found myself like looking at a relationship and was like, oh my gosh, like I'm in love with my partner, and I'm in love with my life, and just my relationship with him. It was everything that I had always wanted. It was everything I had written down to say, like, this is the ideal relationship for me and my partner. So when I had that epiphany, I was just like, wow, like I did it, and I kind of navigated this. And so I had put everything together that I was doing. And so that's kind of what I realized, like, there's so many women that are struggling, that are keep attracting like the same relationship, but different person. Right. And so I realized, like, my calling is to help them to break the cycle.
I'm going to backtrack here a little bit to get the old guy's head straightened about here.
Sure.
So I'll go right back to the start. So when you left home, was it so destructive that there was no support mechanism from mom and dad once you'd left, or like that was a complete severed tie in that support mechanism?
Yeah, it was.
Wow. That's big.
Yeah, basically, yeah. I didn't really have that support. I mean, my grandma was like my savior in my life, but I wasn't gonna run to her, you know. And so I kind of I just ran into.
You wound up running to yourself, though.
I did, yeah.
Like you had no support mechanism, right? That's big. So your second spouse or your second relationship, and I think is that still the current one with the gentleman that overdosed?
Yeah.
So to this day, so he got his shit together.
Yeah, he did.
And he got right, and that so you had said earlier that you're talking about helping other women not go into this pattern. It's so ironic because when my marriage collapsed in 2000, my first marriage, I married a woman, adopted all 3 kids, had trouble with my stepdaughter, and the story goes on. But she was at the University of New Brunswick, and she was writing a thesis on how women pattern bad relationships. Ironically, what my stepdaughter was going through, and she went through some pretty extreme stuff, like being prescribed pharmaceuticals for her problems without really dealing with her problems, right? That's a bad road in itself. Yeah. But you've managed to take this relationship from him almost dying in your arms, having a talk with him, getting the communication going, and getting him to get his shit together. Wow, tell me more.
Yeah, it was so. I was at the point. I look at it and it was like I was at the point, my breaking point of enough. The same as I was when I was leaving my previous relationship with my daughter. It was like I had that same kind of idea, like I don't want this for me, but I don't want my kids to see this, because then I had a son with my current partner. So I have 2 kids now. But so I was like, I don't want my kids seeing like this is how relationship is supposed to be. And you know, and having like the woman holding everything together. That's not, I mean, it's a partnership, right? Like relationships should be 100% equal share. Not, and it doesn't necessarily mean 100% of the time. Sometimes some people have to, one partner has to take a little bit more weight at times as we go through life. But for the majority, we're investing equal share.
One's strong when the other's weak. Right.
Yeah. And, you know, and like when I, you know, a couple of years ago when I was going through some depression, I really had to lean on my partner. And I trusted him to be able to navigate like our life at that time. And before that, I wouldn't have been able to feel like I could rely on him to do that. But because of how we had rebuilt our relationship stronger, and to a more healthy dynamic, and, you know, improved our communication skills, I felt like, okay, you know, I could lean on him, and he picked up the load and he carried everything until I got through the fog. So yeah, it's quite amazing, I guess, if you sit and think about like if someone that the depths of their addiction, literally hitting rock bottom and almost dying, to just catapulting into like this phenomenal person. I mean, it wasn't like he wasn't phenomenal before he was. And the reason why I decided to stay was because I could see his heart and his intentions. He was a very good person, very good intentions, very loving, caring. He just had this thing, you know, this pain he was trying to escape from, because he grew up in a single mom household, and she was abusive to him. So I know, like, as he went through therapy, like he discovered, you know, he was trying to escape that pain. But I mean, otherwise, like, he was a good person. So it was just after he healed that part of himself too, as I had already been healing myself, it was like be able to just like elevate together.
So Heidi, did you self heal? Did you pull yourself out of this entire situation? Just
Yeah.
what did you
I
do? Did
tried
you read books? Did you like you use YouTube? Did you have therapists?
it.
Did you talk
Yeah,
to friends? Like
I,
how do you rebuild by yourself? I guess is a
um,
good question.
yeah, it's really interesting because I did not actually use a therapist. And there's a place for therapy for sure. But what I really leaned into modalities that would bring me back to myself. So that was energy healing. I was diving into energy healing since I'm an energy healer. And I was just focusing on helping other people like with their energy too. And I think as I was doing that, I was also receiving the benefits as well. And then I was doing my own energy healing, clearing all my chakras. I was doing subconscious programming. So I was rewiring my mindset, which is huge because that's like our subconscious programming is literally like a computer program, right? Like you have this program and then the computer just works as it's programmed to do. And so when we're little, we have a program that is established between like 0 and 7. We're in like a theta brainwave state. And we're in like basically in hypnosis. So everything that we see at that point in time in our childhood is basically like it's a recording. So we're
It's
recording this. So
imprinted. Yeah, imprinted.
yeah, so we're basically seeing how our caregivers treat each other, how we're made to feel, our worth, and all those things. So our beliefs are formed. So then we play that out for the rest of our lives according to that program, unless we decide to change it. So then I realized I needed to change the program. So I started just doing self hypnosis. I was doing, affirmations. I was journaling. But the biggest thing, if someone is listening and wants to know, the biggest thing I think that was my healing that helped me heal, forgiveness. And I say that because it was like once I went through this forgiveness process, it literally was like what took the shackles off me. Like I had invisible shackles that was tied to my past, tied to my parents, tied to my ex-husband, tied to my partner at the time, my current partner now, but I was holding so much resentment from him and all the betrayal I felt and myself for me allowing all that crap to happen. So I had to go through a few forgiveness practices, but that was literally like I felt like just let everything go. And it took me a little bit to understand or consider what forgiveness actually was, because originally when I heard, work on forgiveness, I was just like, I'm not condoning what they did. Like my life was shit, whatever.
Yeah.
But then I realized it's not about them. It's not condoning what they did. Forgiveness is about allowing yourself to let it go. And once I had that mindset shift, it's not even about them. They're just living their life. And here I am stuck attached to the past, attached to this pain. I need to let myself heal and I need to let this go. And once I did that, like I felt like some major shifts were happening. And that was probably the hugest thing to my healing.
Yeah, yeah. I'll attest to that. I refer to that as acceptance, right? There's things I've found in my life that the quicker you accept it and move on from it without reason, like I accepted things without reason, and it's helped me pass through a lot of issues in life. And we'll all have issues. Like it's just amazing. But did you research this stuff? Did you read to find out how to do this? Did you so you've got no professional, like all these techniques and things that you're using? There's a lot of science behind what you're doing. Did you just sit there and look at the ceiling, count the dots and the tiles, and come up with this yourself, or?
Like I said, I was kind of just like grasping at like straws, just being like, what do I need to do? So if I felt intuitively, if I felt like I was guided to something, I did it. And so if it felt good for me, if it felt like it resonated for something that I needed, I just did it. And so that's kind of just how I kind of just went along this path, just navigating it with no guide. Yeah.
So, like, I still haven't got my head around how you learned all this stuff. You just form hypotheses on your own, or you must have done a lot of reading to learn, like to learn about yourself, right? So you're talking
Uh,
chakra clearing, you're talking mirror work here, we're talking
so
rewriting
okay,
subconscious belief. These
yeah,
are things that people pull out of thin air.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So with the chakra healing, because I'd done energy healing work, I'd already been familiar with the chakra and how it holds energy, and if it's if it's out of balance or blocked, that can affect our life, and it can even affect our our physical body even. So I knew that I needed to work with the chakras. So that had been some through for that. And then for the subconscious programming, it was just, I was going on YouTube also. I think it's just like, I was just finding YouTube videos that would just talk about like, oh, rewire your mind. Or honestly, like the whole, how I came to find all these things, I can't quite remember, but I know that it was definitely a lot of YouTube videos and like self-help, like releasing what's no longer serving you. But really it was also when I was going through life coach training too, and that was also actually quite remarkable as well, because as I was training to be a coach, I was also being coached. So like I had a peer coach that I would coach, and she would coach me, and then it was just hours upon hours, just tons of coaching. And so that also helped my mindset shift as well. And I had a peer coach introduce me to the forgiveness. So that was kind of just how that kind of came about. So she was just like, hey, I've done forgiveness coaching, I would love to gift this to you. I think it would help you. And I was just like, okay, and then she did it, and I was just like, oh my gosh, that was just amazing. And then I just did that same thing with myself for a few other times for the other people and myself that I needed to do.
Wow. So that's a lot of rebuilding. That is. That's a lot of
Yeah,
rebuilding.
there was also there was this book called the Self-Love Workbook that I had found, and there was a lot of good reviews. It was on Amazon, and so I went through that book also. So it was also just as I was thinking about love and myself and my self-worth and self-esteem. I was able to kind of just like reframe my thought process about myself.
So how much of the first relationship did you put on your own shoulders? How much did you say, Heidi, this is your fault? And did you impose self-guilt in that, or?
I did. I don't know. I did, and then I flip-flopped. Like I put so much initially, I had put so much blame onto him and was like, he did this to me. And then I eventually shifted and was like, no, like I'll like put myself in that situation. I did it. And then now I'm at a point where I'm like, it was just meant to be, as far as my purpose, I believe, like we have to go through these things, but also
To this
too,
day,
it's just
oh, I'm sorry. Yep.
I was just
Go.
going to say, it was also, oh, sorry. My internet keeps cutting out.
You all good there?
Yeah. All right. We're back. Okay. Because my internet, I apologize. My internet was cutting out, but it was also too, so I think it was like, yes, I blamed him. I blamed myself. And I kind of came to this new idea that it was something that I needed to go through to be able to serve my greater purpose and help women heal from all this, learn how to heal like I did from all the pain from my past.
I see a lot of people still to this day, not just in relationships, always have a blame mentality, though. Always putting it on somebody else for their situations and stuff like that. So a lot of these things that you've learned and taught yourself, one could impose those on themselves to just create a better general life, could they not?
Absolutely. And it's funny because it's like I say that I help women attract their dream partner. It's really, I'm helping them come back to themselves, because what the work is that we do together is help them let go of that programming, but also to just learn how to deeply, unapologetically love themselves. And once you, and anybody, like if you love yourself and you see your value and you hold true to that value, you have boundaries, you have standards, you have a vision for your life, you have confidence, and you start to walk the path towards what you want in life, because you feel like you're worthy of it. You feel like you deserve it. But for those people who don't feel worthy of it, I think that they struggle more, and then they live in like a lack and poverty and victim mindset. So it's like those people that it could have been easy for me to fall into a victim mindset, but I realized that if I was a victim, that I have no chance of changing it. So the beautiful thing about owning your life circumstances and saying, I did this, I created this, whatever, I allowed this to happen. And some people will probably argue with me on that, but seriously, it's just, if you can say, I did this, I have the power to create my life. If you are finding yourself in a situation you don't like, you will have then the power to change it to something that you do. You just have to be able to have that courage to be able to step forward and take a different path.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So, so now you've got your Facebook page. I'll put the link in the YouTube comments and stuff like that for those who want to go to Heidi's page. So now you figured out how to fix yourself up. You got something that works, and you're systemizing that. You're turning that into a system to coach people now. Is that correct?
Yeah. I created a program. I had to go back and think about all the things that I did, and I put it into like a systematic process to be able to help women do the same.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. That is. That's good. Like as we talked prior to this last week, is that like you've got a lot of people you can help out there. You've got a lot of people you can help out there, because I know I'm not making light of your life experiences, but there's a lot of people in bad places right now that need help. What you have accomplished so far is other people's dreams.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I hope to be a light for other people.
So let's talk, Heidi, on breaking the pattern now, right?
Yeah.
So how do you go about and not attract things that you don't want? Like okay, so you acknowledge to yourself that, hey, I got myself in this situation, right? So how do you rewire yourself to get away from that stuff?
It's gonna be an identity shift. So what you're gonna have to do is start to understand your thought processes, your behaviors that you're currently holding. You're going to have to just really kind of do a life audit, or a self audit rather. And then I would say you're going to have to identify, like, what is the version of you who has what you want? Then you're going to have to identify, what does that version, what are their thoughts? What are their beliefs? What are their behaviors? And you're going to have to start shifting into those. And it's going to take some, it'll take some work. It's not overnight, but it's going to take a lot of
soul searching.
Yeah, soul searching. Definitely, you're going to have to soul search to know, like, what is that version of you? What is that life, that relationship, whatever? What is that for you? What does it look like? And then you're going to have to start just telling yourself a new story, because we're always running stories. We have, like, I think Dr. Joe Dispenza says, I think it's like between 50 to 70,000 thoughts a day, and most of them are subconscious. So most of the thoughts that we have are we're not even aware of. And that's that programming I was talking about earlier. So if we're living on this automatic program, we have to put in a new story. We have to put in a new program. And by doing that is by shifting the things that we're telling ourselves, shifting our thoughts. So that's why I said you have to become very aware of those thoughts that you're thinking. so that way you can start shifting them. So if you're like, oh, I always attract emotionally unavailable partners. Okay, well, then that's what you're going to keep attracting. So you need to put in a new belief and say, whatever it is that you feel like it resonates for you, but, something more empowering, like,
So are you manifesting this, or are you just reassessing your goals, looking inwards, saying, here's where I've
well,
lied to myself, here's what I got myself into, here's what I have to do to get to where I want to go?
so for me, manifesting, it's like you're manifesting by shifting your identity, because we're going to manifest things once we shift into the version of us that can achieve the thing, right? So we're shifting out of the old version of us, that program, those thoughts, beliefs, behaviors, habits, and we're going to then shift into this new version of us that has the thing that we want. So we're going to start adopting those new thoughts, beliefs, behaviors. And ultimately, by adopting that, embodying that, we'll eventually get to the thing that we're after. And then you just got to be, open to receiving and detached from any, a lot of people, they're like, oh, I have this goal and this is exactly how I want to get it. But life doesn't work that way. It's like, yes, we have a goal, right? But the path to get there it's not linear, right? Like, things happen, life happens. You just have to be open to receiving, and you can't know or try to control how something is going to come about. So you'll be able to be this person who attracts new opportunities. And it also comes down to, once you start shifting your beliefs and your thoughts that you're telling yourself, your stories, there's a part in your brain is called the reticular activating system. And it's literally programmed to start to focus on the thing that you're telling it. And there's a more eloquent way of explaining this.
What did you call that? Reticular? Do that again.
A reticular activating system, RAS.
RAS. And you're telling me you come up with this yourself, or you've done
No.
some studying here?
No. No.
I are a mechanic, and I'm getting my tongue around that, trying to pronounce it already. Right?
So,
I are a mechanic. Right?
Yes. So yeah. I first heard it from, I think the first person I heard it from was Tony Robbins, who was talking about it. And it's basically like this part of our brain that is seeking out specific. Okay. So for instance, like if you get a car, right? And then you get a car, and is it true that you start seeing that car everywhere where before you didn't really notice it? Yeah. That's a part of your brain. That's that part of your brain, the reticular activating system. So when you start shifting the way that you're thinking about your life, and you shift it to what you want it to be, your reticular activating system is going to start noticing those things that are in alignment with that. That's the best way I can describe that.
Yeah. I can explain that another way. Look where you want to drive.
Yes.
Yeah. Simple as that. The guy did ski patrol for a couple of years, for 4 or 5 years, post heart attack here in Canada, and we're doing level 3 training on extreme hills and stuff in the Canadian Rockies here, and we're shooting blades or going down through trees and stuff. And so I'm scared shitless about this. Right? My nickname in ski patrol was Tumbleweed, and that's basically what I bet. Yeah, full out or nothing, right? Not falling, you're not trying, but my instructor in that case there, that's exactly that. I can't go through trees. He says, all you have to do is steer for the white. If you steer for the green, steer for the brown, you're going to have a bad day. Steer for the white. So the rest will take care of itself. And I guess that in similarity is exactly what you're saying, is it not? It's just like we find what we look for, I guess, right?
Yes. And I've heard that analogy too about skiing too. It's like, you don't focus on the obstacle, you focus on where you're trying to go, right? Because if you focus on the obstacle, you're going to go into it, right?
Yeah. That's kind of a spin on that one, and that holds true to life. So you've advanced yourself so much here from being in a hellish position, looking inward, fixing that, get the training. So Why do you think young women and young guys who enter into these type of relationships, is it from not knowing what a relationship's going to be like? Is it like, how do we get ourselves in there in the first place?
Oh, yes. It's the program. So even though you consciously want something, right? Like if you haven't cleared the pattern that's attracting that relationship that you don't want, and it keeps repeating the cycle, if you haven't fixed that, you're going to keep attracting it even though you know you want something different. So it's because of your belief system about yourself, about the relationship, about relationships.
So, well, what key identifiers would let oneself know you're going down that road? Like, how would you even know until you found yourself in the position of hell? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm 65 years of age, so I've seen a lot of shit and get a lot of experience about stuff. So I'm pretty attuned to what I'm doing now. Uh, but in my earlier years, back in my 20s, like I was very naive and wishful to the ongoings of the world. And I joined the Navy and had a girlfriend, the first girl I ever lived with. I went to fucking see her come back, and she had the fucking Electrolux vacuum cleaner salesman moved in. So it was more than the vacuum cleaner that sucked. But at the end of the day, that was my first experience to a relationship. Number one, you're in the Navy, you don't have a relationship. But I learned that. But how could a young person determine their life's going to go to hell, or do they have to get into a mess to get unstuck for it? That's kind of where I'm going. If you could give a word of avoidance, or the first thing you have to avoid, you have to know you're in danger or you're in a bad place. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So how would one know?
If they're currently in a relationship, is that what your question is?
No, before they get into it.
So if they're heading into that path.
Okay, so if you had to start all over again, what type of things would you look before you went into a relationship? Like, are there things you automatically look for?
So
or do you develop a sense for this? Or
okay, yeah, okay. So here's the key: you get out of a relationship. Most people they jump into a relationship too soon. They haven't done what they need to do to heal from that previous relationship. If it was negative or whatever. There's not enough time. So you have to be able to just kind of detach energetically, emotionally, mentally from that relationship. Take time for you. I think a lot of people don't take enough time for themselves because they are lonely. So that would be my first suggestion is if you get out of a relationship or if you're finding yourself out of one, I would say just make sure that you take it at least, and this might sound like a long time, but like a year at least. Okay. But during that time, it's really important that you pour into yourself. Like you start finding things that make you happy. There are things that that make you just who you are. You're just following your passions and identifying to what about that relationship didn't go right for you. What made it bad, right? And so then you start to become aware of maybe those patterns that you keep attracting. Like, what was it that wasn't good? And what did I like about it? So then you have a really good understanding of what was bad, what was good. And you start focusing on how do I cultivate more of the good? How do I bring that in? And again, I think like the more you focus on like what it is that you're after and the good parts of the relationship, then you're more open to receiving that. It's also important too that when you meet people, remember that people show you who they are. A lot of times I think people go, well, women, I would say, I was one of these. Okay. I would go and like meet people and then I would be like, oh, they have potential, right? Like, no, you can't focus on people's potential. You just focus on who they are right now. Are they in alignment with your values? Are they a good person? Are they, they show you who they are. Do you like that person? Don't try to make them better or worse than what they are. Just observe it and realize early on, okay, there's there's too many things that don't make me feel good about this person, a relationship. They drain my energy. I don't feel safe around them. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells or whatever. Then I would say that that's really key indicators. Don't go down that road.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So basically what you're telling me, because I'm a mechanic here, don't buy an old car, expect to fix it up if you know it's fucking done.
Yeah. Yes. And also too, it's like the work that I think it's really key that I do is just it's important. We all have intuition. I think some people are more connected to their intuition than they are. So some people are more connected than they are, or other people. So once you're connected to your intuition, it's like this guiding inner knowing. And when you're connected to it deeply, you have more trust in yourself and you can see through the bullshit way clearer than if you aren't. Because then you can just make up excuses for the person's behavior and kind of be blinded by all the red flags that are appearing. So, and that was me. I mean, I was not connected enough to my intuition where I was just like, oh my God, this is love, whatever. And I was affected by all of the feelings that this person was making me feel initially, that I was missing a lot of the things when I went back. And I was like, oh man, there was a lot of stuff there that I missed. So yeah.
Is it because men and women dream differently, do you think, or what?
That do they what?
So like, do they dream differently?
Dream
right?
differently.
So yeah, like when a woman enters into a relationship, it's like buying that old car. Oh, I can fix that about him. I can tweak this about him. He can change that way here. He can do this, right? When a guy dreams, it's more objective. Hey, I want this. I want the pretty wife. I want the pretty house. I want the big truck. I want this. I want that. I want this. So a guy's for Jesus isn't very alphabet gang, is it? It's not very DEI, but I'm pretty gender down the line here. But when a guy thinks in terms of forward, he thinks a material possession and positions of contentment, right? Like so. Guys are pretty simple. I don't know how many guys I've ever met are pretty happy with game console, big TV, case of beer, and a fucking sofa, right?
Yeah.
And then you throw a woman into the mix, and she'll say, "Oh, well, we need curtains, we need dishes, we need this, we need that, we need this." So she's dreaming of creating a world, and the guy's looking to fulfill the moment a lot. Do you think that's a lot of the cataclysm of mistakes that begins the whole process?
Yeah, that's interesting. Perhaps.
I got you thinking on that one, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. That's really interesting. Oh, and I love because I I'm not tuned into the male dynamic of it. But I really
I'm a
like
mechanic. Yeah. I'm a mechanic from the last century, right? So when I went to school, we only had 2 washrooms, right? And just usually smoked them anyway, but that's a different story for another podcast. But that being said, so I'm pretty black and white. So I when I take a look at things, when I problem solve, okay. So just going off of what we're talking about here today, but the other day when we met, I was saying hi. I said, "Man, you get a powerful message here. You can help a lot of people." I recognize that immediately, and then I encourage you to start your own podcast. Did not?
Yes, you did.
So from that, what my mind did was say she needs this, that, this, mechanical things to make this happen for her, and I sent you a fistful of links.
Yeah.
Right. So I sit back and I say, okay, good. She should be able to start building that machine now and get her message out. When that happened to you, how did you think of it? Were you really so wound up in the mechanical issues and I got to do this and I got to do that? Or how did you perceive it?
How did I perceive your help? Is that what you're asking me?
No, envision what you needed to do to create a podcast.
Oh, it wasn't as straightforward. So I didn't have the steps, I guess. Well, and
Okay.
so to be honest,
So,
I
so
wasn't okay. Go ahead.
I'm going to ask you another question. Were you
Yeah.
dreaming of the people you could help? And when
Yes.
you were, yeah, and you were envisioning yourself on camera helping people? Were you,
Yes. Yes.
were you, were you seeing yourself standing on a stage talking to a bunch of women and helping them?
Yes. Yes. That's as much as public speaking terrifies me, I see myself on stages. Like,
I see you there too.
oh,
I see you on stages, and like from our initial onset a couple of weeks ago when we started talking together, I knew the importance of your mission, and I know where you're going with this even before you do. And that's that's the privilege I have of age, right? I always tell people every 10 years you change. So
yeah, I believe that.
my no, that's the truth. So I'm
Yeah.
65 now. So from 0 to 10 years of age, you know what I want to do? I want to catch frogs, ride my bicycle, do jumps, and not get my nuts caught in the seat. From the
Yes.
ages of 10, well, that's the life. From the ages of 10 to 20, right? I learned how to shave, even though I didn't need to. I got all kinds of neat dreams at night, and I tried chasing women to the age of 20. But good place to be in the Navy. From 20 to 30, I found out I could catch women, but I need a little bit more. And I thought, because of my program that you talked of earlier, the family mechanism was what I wanted because I come from a family of 10 kids. Last century, we used to have big families. It's 6 sisters, 4 brothers, or 3 brothers for a total of 10 kids. I learned about lineups. I'm waiting for the washroom with 6 sisters. I learned about lineups. Trust me. So from the ages of 20 to 30, that's what I thought was right. So I married a woman who had 3 kids and adopted the 3 kids. From 30 to 40, I was raising the kids. I was thinking about the kids. My priorities changed again. From 40 to 50, I realized the kids were all grown up, and I didn't like the person I married because I did it at the wrong time at 22, but I held tight to it. From 50 to 60, I established myself in a career to Western Alberta. I came out here from when I came out here in 2002, I had 2 garbage bags of clothes from a broken marriage, a toolbox, a rented single axe U-Haul trailer, and a 93 Chevy Blazer. And that's how I come to Port McMurray, Alberta, on bended knee. Discharged first day from bankruptcy. So basically, I had to rebuild my life. Different than what you did because as a male, I'm a provider, right?
Yeah.
And I took that year and a half, actually 2 years. I did stand-up comedy in that time. And I really went inwards and looked at myself to self-analyze and say, hey, did I screw this up or what? And in the end of the day, it came out I was used as a meal ticket, and I didn't identify long-term mating factors. Right? And bring us on to here. And now I'm from 60 to 50, 50 to 60, that's what I did. Now from 60 onward, I'm transitioning once again because I'm not king shit at Turtle Island, but I'm not a bad mechanic. I lead a lot of guys through experience and stuff like that in the industry I'm in. I'm always in team environments. And through that 50 to 60 range where I was in ski patrol and I was supervisor and project manager and this manager and that manager, I found out how teams self-destructed. And a lot of teams can be resolved. Their issues can be resolved by communication, believe it or not.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So the team you're talking about is man and woman or woman and woman or a couple of teams. I look at different teams. So my face now is got the podcast going for love because when I was north at one of my sites last summer, a guy I worked with 10 years earlier said, hey, man, these are good conversations. You should have a podcast. And here we are. So I don't monetize it or anything, and that's not the purpose of it. I wrote the book to help teams. I'm learning how to get on the speak. Yeah, I'm learning how to speak on stage and make connections within that industry. And my retirement plan is I'm going to be traveling around North America here, talking to people, fixing up their teams, and dragging the wife along for a tour in the U.S. hopefully. So that's the game plan. But back where I started with that, every 10 years I've changed, haven't I?
Yeah.
It's
different phases.
It's a process, right? And I can see where you're at right now, and it's absolutely amazing the recovery and self-heal you've done here. That's phenomenal. My stepdaughter in my first relationship, never got to that stage. She fell into the abusive relationship situation. She was admitted to a hospital in 1999-2000, put in a rubber room for a week. She had that many suicidal tendencies. She fell down the path of resolving issues with pharmaceutical drugs. So back in the day, you could get prescription drugs in New Brunswick, which is just above the state of Maine. And one in the audience here, Heidi, she's from Oregon. Pretty clever. I remember that. So,
yeah.
Anyway, my daughter, with manipulating doctors, she would go to one doctor, tell them her life problems. You know what doctors do? They write a prescription. Here, you need this, you need that, you need this, you need this, take this, that, and that, and this. So you take a bunch of drugs, didn't kill the pain, you go see another doctor, tell him the story again. He prescribed a bunch of drugs. And the third doctor, so she had 3 doctors on the go. She was taking over 100 prescription medications a day in 3 rounds of medications. She dropped from 140 pounds and having 3 kids to 75 pounds.
Oh, wow.
We thought she was going to be dead within the year. And my analogy to that was like, if I had a bad relationship and I went to the bar and the fucking bartender described me 2 shots of Jack Daniel, chase it back with a fucking quarter Canadian club, I still hadn't dealt with the issue, and the same thing as my daughter. So your conversation today here, Heidi, strikes home to a lot of things that I've experienced in my life with my stepdaughter, which is absolutely amazing. That's why I said 2 weeks ago that your message is so powerful. Yeah, that's why I'm so willing to help you set up your podcast and get that all rock and rolling, right?
Because, yes, you've been so sweet and so kind, Maynard.
The amount of people you are going to help, Heidi, you're going to surprise yourself. 10 years from now, you're going to say, "Holy jeez, I helped that." I met in the speaking business here. I've met another lady in Goodyear, Arizona, who's mentoring me on the speaking thing. And she does corporate culture. She's helped over 500,000 people.
Wow.
Off the stage, and she doesn't even have a podcast. Right? It's amazing, but
incredible.
So cool. So enough about me and all this blah 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 stuff.
Well, I want to touch on something. I really want to touch on something, Maynard, because you said like with your book, which I think is phenomenal. So I love what you're doing with your book. Seriously, like with the leadership and helping build the teams, because I just quit my federal job back in February of this year, and so now I'm starting on this this mission, this journey, and I was a supervisor in the federal government, and I was leading like 12 people, and it's so true that communication is so essential to teams, to just team dynamic, not letting things go, a lot of people can just be like, "Oh, we'll just brush it under the rug. We'll just keep going forward." But something happened. Something was said between 2 people, and they're just upset. Well, they're just trying to go forward, but it's like a virus that infects the whole team, right? So
it's kind of like a relationship, isn't it?
It is. So that's also too what I was encouraging my team. Like, listen, we need to talk, right? We need to communicate. Just like in our personal, relationships as well, or romantic relationships, anything. Like it comes down to how well you communicate, because I grew up feeling like, or seeing my parents not communicating very well. It was like very passive aggressive. And so for the longest time, that's how I communicated. It was just, I was upset, but I was just going to shove it under and just keep on. But meanwhile, I was pissed. Right. And so it took some time to really get to the point of a healthy conversation or healthy communication dynamic within my own relationship, and my partner too. It took him a lot of work with communication as well. So it's like once you can come together as a couple and you can feel safe enough, that's so key in relationships, is to feel safe. Like you're with a partner that makes you feel safe, seen, heard, so that you can open up that dialogue, that communication, without it being like, oh, I'm going to say something and now I'm going to be attacked for it. Like it's so important. So it's like, you need to be able to be in a relationship that you feel safe speaking up and expressing yourself and having it having it heard, and then being able to also hear what the other person is hearing in a healthy way. And it's not name calling. It's not nitpicking. It's just like just expressing how you're feeling in the moment.
That's the basis of everything, I think.
Yeah,
That's
it really is.
that's what life has taught me so far, right? I always preach that to everybody I work with. 2 types of listening, and most people listen to respond. Most important part is to listen to understand. If you listen to understand, 90% of the times you do that first, 90% of the times your response is going to be different.
Absolutely. Because you don't have a pre-decided idea of what it is you're going to say. You're actually in tune with what the person is saying. And that's something that I was fortunate to be able to learn how to do through coach training. Is like, there's like different levels of listening. And as a coach, when we're listening to our client, it's like, we have to detach from what the person is saying and be in the moment and not be like, what's my next question? It's like, what is this person saying? That I now have a question to that can pull more information out of them to have more breakthroughs. So it's really just like active listening, being in the moment.
Yeah. A lot of people don't do that though.
No, they don't, unfortunately. It would help. Like if we could just elevate our listening skills, it just, it's like we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, right?
Yeah. I have guys told me that many a time. 2 ears, 1 mouth. So my mouth gets rolling at high speed. So if you work with me, I'm usually the entertainer. So
okay.
just saying. But it is what it is. So okay, so you're stuck in a loop. So you're going to give me some takeaways, Heidi. What can I do? I want to regulate my nervous system, so I'm getting all tweaked out. What should I do?
Oh, you cut out. I'm sorry. Repeat what you said.
I'm looking for some Heidi takeaways on this here, right? So if I'm going to regulate my nervous system.
Yes.
Any good techniques I can use?
Yes. I'm going to say meditation is like the holy grail of it all. And a lot of people just balk at it. But there's something to be said about being able to close off distractions, just sit with yourself and just be in the moment, right? Because we have now society is just, everything is just taking our attention away from us. And so when we can just sit and be with ourselves, we can learn so much from ourselves. We can be in tune, we can get guidance, we can understand like what's going on, like why do I feel the need to go have a drink at night every night or smoke or whatever, you can start to really gain some insight. So I think like just really important getting in tune with yourself. And I recommend meditation. There's also walking meditation if you find yourself struggling to sit still, but it's nonetheless sitting, getting quiet with yourself. And I would say just becoming aware of your thought patterns about, let's see. So let's say if you're thinking about like your relationship, like the relationship you want to be attracting and you want to walk things you don't want anymore. Again, I'm just going to say, figure out what are all the things about the relationship you didn't like before, and what are all the things that you did, or if there weren't anything that you liked about it, figure out what it is. What is your ideal relationship, and start to cultivate that within yourself. So it's like what you're seeking externally, you need to build up within yourself, because you're always looking for fulfillment, love, validation. You need to validate yourself. You need to love yourself first. You need to be able to be comfortable being alone. And when you do that and you get to that point, you'll start magnetizing these because you're operating on a different frequency, and like quantum physics talks about. So then energetically, you're just on a different vibrational frequency with those people that are in alignment with that, and you'll start attracting that to you.
I don't think most of my listeners are going to be too involved in emotional intelligence.
Sure.
In all honesty, right? But I have talked to a couple of guys here, like with Rob Hilditch. We had a suicide episode in February. He's pretty in touch with that stuff. But I was thinking for things for just Joe Blow can do when you're feeling those stressful situations and stuff like that. I know when I went through hell back in 2000, journaling helped me a lot. So in order for me to get inside my head, I found by journaling, and what journaling is, folks, is it's writing it down in a diary. Go back
Yes.
and review that in a week's time, in a month's time, and what that will show you is not a solution, but it will show you how you were thinking. Because when you reread your own notes, you wind up and say, "Holy fuck, was I ever in a bad place? I didn't have that figured out." And you really, it helps to give you that introspect that you can start to form the foundations to move away from that. Would you agree with me on that, Heidi?
It's really key, because you can like take what's maybe you're not consciously aware of and put it on paper, and then you start to look at what you're writing down, and it's like, oh wow, and you can start to have some mindset shifts from that and some awareness.
Yeah. I found journaling helps a lot for me. It really did, because we're all going to have impasses in life which are really going to fucking suck one way or the other, folks. I'm going to tell you, it could be anything from your dog dying to your live-in taking vacuum cleaner salesman in while you're at sea. It could be all kinds of neat things, right? You'll have that emotional devastation, and sometimes you have to look inside. When you're in that emotional frame, you can't look inside, but what you can do is you write down how you feel at the moment, and then go back and look at yourself.
Yeah, and the more you can be in the present moment, the more you can become aware of those thoughts and behaviors and start to self-analyze in the moment, which is going to really help you overall.
Yeah. So, in a nutshell, you've come from a wounded position into a worthy position, and now you're looking to help others, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's another journey in itself. that's another journey in there. You'll be surprised how quick you get pulled into that. You will be surprised.
I'm open. I'm open.
Yeah, you're going in the right direction, and you've got a lot of good things coming for you. There's a lot of personal satisfaction in helping others. You're similar mindset to myself, right? So when I see I help others, that's my reward in itself. And as the listeners to this show, every 10 years, your desires are going to be different, right? Because your life circumstance changes, and your needs and your wants change as well too. So cool. Heidi, I really enjoyed this conversation. It's really, really cool.
Thank you, Maynard. I did too. Thank you so much.
So, for the listeners out there, on my YouTube channel, I'm going to have a link to Heidi's Facebook page. She's in the process of building a website. I suspect she's going to write a book. I suspect she's going to be speaking on stage within 12 to 24 months. So she's on the start of another leg of her journey, which is going to be really, really exciting and really productive. If you want to reach out to Heidi, once again, her link is going to be on my YouTube, right? And I'll put it on the short clips that I put on my social medias as well too. So, Heidi, thank you very much for spending your time with me today, because I know it's been 2 weeks trying to get you stopped up long enough to have a conversation with you. I greatly appreciate your time. And at the end of this recording, I'm going to ask you to stay on while I download everything, and I can get video and audio files on this. So once again, thanks for tuning in to Tears of Trust. I'm your host, Maynard. Heidi Lynne's been my guest today. If you got any questions about the show, send us a comment, and I can put you in touch with Heidi. If you can't even figure out where the link is on my page, get a hold of me, and I'll put you in touch with Heidi. Heidi, thank you so much for coming out, girl.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, everybody.
Pleasure.
Okay, bye-bye.